welcome back to Love Your Shelf. Today I want to talk to you about books that I read in August. So in August I read 10 books. Ideally, I would love to be able to read 10 books every month. That would put me at 120 a year, but 10 books is actually a lot for me. I normally average like 5 or 6. The reason that I read so much more this month is because I had a family emergency, so I was driving back and forth between Washington and California a bit, so I got to listen to some Audible books, but I did also read while I was there as well. So I got 10 books in, and I want to talk to you about all of them. I had some that I loved, and I had some that I was less than thrilled about. So yeah, I want to talk to you about those. So the first book I'm going to talk about is The Song of Achilles. And I've been talking about this book, and I've been listening about this book, and I've been hearing about this book, and I had not read it yet. This is by Madeliene Miller, and I listened to this on Audible, even though I did have a copy of it, because I was driving, and I knew that it's something I wanted to listen to. And it came available as I was driving, so that was pretty cool. So The Song of Achilles is about Achilles and his love interest, Patroclus, and it's a very good book, and I want to read you a quote from it that I liked, that I thought about often. So Chiron had said once that nations were the most foolish of mortal inventions. No man is worth more than another, wherever he is from. But what if he is your friend? Achilles had asked him, feet kicked up on the wall of the rose quartz cave. Or your brother? Should you treat him the same as a stranger? You ask a question that philosophers argue over, Chiron had said. He is worth more to you, perhaps, but the stranger is someone else's friend and brother. So which life is more important? And that quote is really important to me because it's a reminder that we are all here on Earth trying to do the best that we can do for those that we love. And it's a good reminder of how villains become villains, or people become seen as like in the wrong, when we're each trying to do the best that we can do for ourselves and those we love. And so overall, this is a really good book. I've been told a million times I need to read it. I had very high expectations, and because of that, it wasn't my favorite book, but I would give it a 4. It is overall a good book. I feel like if it hadn't been so hyped up, I might have enjoyed it more, but I did still enjoy it. 4 out of 5 is good. So Song of Achilles, that is not the first book I read, but it's the first book that I'm reviewing for my August reads. The next book that I'm going to review is The White Tiger, which I got a long time ago, I think at Goodwill actually, and I do a Goodwill book haul as well, where I mention this. So tigers are my favorite animals. And I have a few favorite animals, but tigers are like my only favorite animal besides bats that aren't ocean based. So tigers and bats, and dogs. I love dogs too. But anyway, so I got The White Tiger because I thought it was going to be about a white tiger, and it is metaphorically. It's about a person who's considered the white tiger and his rise through like corporate India. So it was an interesting book, but it was very dry. It was supposed to be funny. My humor it didn't match up. So I'd give it like a 2.5 to 3 stars. Overall, it was an interesting book, but it wasn't my favorite. Hector and the Search for Happiness, which is another Goodwill book that I got. And this is about a psychiatrist who talks to people who are depressed, and he decides he wants to find out what the secret to happiness is. So he stops working and he goes to Japan, and he meets up with a friend and a monk, and some weird stuff happens for sure. And then he also meets up with someone who researches happiness and like the equation for happiness, and he makes a list of what happiness means. And it's pretty similar, like if I made a list of things that make me happy, it would probably be along the lines of his for the most part, but there are one or two things where I'm like, that doesn't jive with me. But everybody's different, and what makes people happy are different. And one of the things they mention is that some people are just happier in general, like they're more positive people, but they can't find out if it's nature versus nurture, like the reason why those people are that way. People that are more happy being, you know, more positive, and people that are less happy being less positive and less happy in their life. And I'm very interested in nature versus nurture. That's what one of the things I wanted to go to school for. So I thought that that was a cool element that they added in there that I 100% agree with, that there are just people that are generally more happy or generally less happy. And part of that is probably based on their nature, and part of it is probably based on their nurture. So I thought that was really interesting. The book I read is not this book. This is the first book, Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. And so I just wanted to bring that out because this is the first book. I read the second book. So the second book is called Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World. So it's about Aristotle and Dante. They are both seniors, and they're in love, and they started their love in the first book, and it's about things that they have to overcome together as being two gay men in their community. And there is something that happens, I'm not gonna share it, in the end, that I was like really sad that it happened, and I was like, why did this have to happen? So there's just like different levels of them having to overcome things, and it's also more about Aristotle learning to find himself, which is incredible, because in the first book he's very lost, and he's starting to learn a little bit more about himself as he becomes closer with Dante, and so that's great, but they explore it more in the second book, which is really awesome. The next book I read for book club, and it's called My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. And this is by Fredrik Backman. So My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry is about a 7-year-old who is given a quest when her grandmother dies to provide letters to the people in her apartment complex or condo complex, housing complex, and you find out that all of them are there because of the grandmother, essentially, and they're all connected to her in some way, and she feels like there are things that she did wrong when it comes to them, but you can also like tell throughout the story there are things that she did right. And so it's a really good book. It has laughter, it has really sad parts. Fredrik Backman just does that naturally. Like, he takes grief or suicide or rape, like really deep, dark things, and finds the joy in them. And so he's amazing at it, and I would recommend anything that he does for anyone. My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry is the first book to a second book called Britt Marie Was Here. I read them backwards because I was unaware, so if you do want to pick up either of those, I recommend you read My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry first, but I read them backwards and it didn't hurt me any, so up to you. The next book I read was Vow of Thieves, which is a duology. Actually, let's do it this way. So Dance of Thieves I got for my birthday in October, and I finished it in January, and it was really good, and it summed up really well. And then it had an epilogue, and the epilogue was a page and a half, and that page and a half tore me apart. So I had to read the second one, Vow of Thieves, which, if I was honest, I was going to anyway because I love Dance of Thieves. I read it super quickly. It's over 500 pages, Dance of Thieves is. Vow of Thieves is just under, I think it's 470-ish, 480-ish pages, so it's just under 500 pages, and it is also just as good. So it's about Kazi and the Patri, and their love, plus everything that they have to do in this town. It's a town that Mary Pearson made or created, and she actually is going to have more stories around this world, but the world is different than, or not the world, the next set of books is going to be not centered around Kazi and Jace, but which is the Petri, but other people. So that is Vow of Thieves. This is a young adult duology, and I would recommend it to anyone that loves fantasy or romance or young adult fantasy in general. It's really good. The people are awesome. I love the character development. I love the conundrums that they have to overcome, the adventures they have to go on. So yeah, definitely I would check this out, Vow of Thieves and Dance of Thieves. I think the very first book that I read, if you want to call it a book, it's not really a book, but it's Allegory of the Cave by Plato, which I read because we read Piranesi for book club, and one of the people in my book club said that Piranesi reminded her of Allegory of the Cave by Plato, and I had not read it. So I did, and it was lackluster. It's Plato. Like, it's crazy because he has so many amazing philosophical ideas, and he literally put it together in like a 20-minute audible that I read. And I probably could have listened to it 8 times and missed something because he just has so much stacked up. But it does talk about, it's similar to Piranesi. If you've read it, like, I get where that cross would come from. So if you have read Piranesi, I would say read Allegory of the Cave. If you have read Allegory of the Cave, I would say read Piranesi. And if you've read both of them, then yay, that's awesome. And you probably will also like other Plato things, other Plato writings, because I think that they're enjoyable, but they're also like literally something you could listen to or read multiple times and miss something. So it's always good, like if you keep rereading it, you're gonna catch something else. So that was really awesome. I also read Daughter of the Moon Goddess. So I would recommend Daughter of the Moon Goddess. It's by Sue Lynn Tan. I give it, it's so hard. I really, really want to give this 5 stars. I think I'm at 4.75. I don't know where the 0.25 is coming from, where I'm holding off. I think it's because I also read Iron Widow, which is around here. I also read Iron Widow, and I really loved both of them, but I don't love both of them more than or as much as other books I have given 5 stars. And that's it. There's no other reason why these books shouldn't get 5 stars. Both of them are amazing. So Sue Lynn Tan's Daughter of the Moon Goddess is about the daughter of a moon goddess, and also like, I don't want to create spoilers, but so I won't. So it's about her adventures. She ends up going to war. She ends up being like a servant sort of for the prince, and she does there's like a whole bunch of different things rolled into it. There's a huge a huge plot twist at the end-ish, like 3/4 into the way of the book, that you might have kind of seen coming. Like, it definitely preludes to it, but I didn't want to believe it. So when it happened, I was like, no. But yeah, overall, it's an incredible book. It's pretty fast-paced. Things are changing all the time. They're always adding more elements. I really enjoyed the way the woman character, the main character, was written, because she has flaws, but she's always trying to be better and remind herself to be better and be on guard, and she doesn't lack like that guilt that like me as a woman feels on a regular basis just for living and not recognizing something. And so I really enjoyed that in the book, and overall it's a really incredible book. It is coming out there is going to be a second one, and I'm very excited for the second one as well. Like, as soon as it is released, I'm sure I'm going to be reading it as quickly as possible. So I'm excited for that. It was really good. I also read The Guide by Peter Heller. So I've talked about Peter Heller before. I got into him because I read a nonfiction book by him, but he's also written fiction books. So The Dog Stars, The River, and The Guide. So I just read The Guide. The Dog Stars for me was a 3. The River for me was a 5. The Guide for me was like a 2. And I think part of it is, and this happens all the time, I wasn't in the mood set to read what this book was about. So I was driving alone through the mountains of California, and it's about a guy that's in the mountains in Colorado and thinks he's signing up to be a guide of a resort, but finds out that the resort has like a lot of shady things going on. So I'm not going to tell you what those shady things are. It's written in true Peter Heller fashion, so like it still is good. It just wasn't what I needed in that moment. So I might go back to it later. So also the main character is Jack, and Jack was one of the 2 main characters in The River, and The River was a 5-star for me. So I was really excited to see where he ends up, and I do not like where he ends up. I'm not a fan. So also that could be part of the reason why I couldn't give it more stars. So last but not least, the book that I want to talk to you about is Little Weirds by Jenny Slate. So this is Jenny Slate. You may have seen her before. I know her as Mona Lisa from Parks and Recreation. I'm sure she's been in other things, but that is legit the main thing that I have seen her in, or at least the first thing I saw her in, or the most memorable thing I saw her in. Parks and Recs is really cool. Parks and Recreation. If you haven't seen it, it's old, so you could binge watch the heck out of it. Leslie Knope's character is a lot like Michael Scott's character in The Office, where like you don't like them. They're not great people. You hope you never meet someone like that. But then somehow through the series they become endearing people with flaws, and you end up loving them. So I know that this is about this book, and we will get there, I promise. But just shout out to Parks and Rec. If you haven't seen it, yeah, go for it. It's good. So, Little Weirds by Jenny Slate. First off, this cover is gorgeous. It's super cute. I love it. It has just like random stuff like a cheeseburger and a camera and a hot dog and beer and a dinosaur and seashells and flowers and more things I'm sure in here that I didn't see right off the bat. But let's talk about Little Weirds, please. Okay, so this book is like no other book I've ever read in my entire life. It's quirky, it's real, it's written in a way I've never heard anyone write or even talk. Like I've never, no. Because it's all new, it's all original, it's all unique, it's all Jenny Slate. I'm 100% on board for it. It's so unique, I love it so much. So she has a whole bunch of chapters in it. Oh, I totally booked, like, it was up here because I had the chapter I wanted to read. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but she has a lot of chapters in here called I Died, and then it tells you how she died, which is hilarious. And so I want to read you just the first part of this one called I Died Listening, which is very much about the Me Too movement and people that talk a lot of talk but don't put any action into anything. So it says, I died listening. I died. Oh God, I did die. Some man was standing right in the middle of the room talking about how he knew that now was the time for men to listen, and he was proud to say that he knew how to listen, but strangely, he kept talking for so long, and I was the one who was listening. And so then what happened was that my head twisted around on my neck and faced the wall. But that didn't seem to bother him, and it certainly didn't stop him because I guess he was on a roll. And then he just walked around to the other side of me and kept talking, and what he was saying was so obvious but backward and wrong, but to tell him that would have caused a big bust up. So it goes on. It's amazing. I try to tell my husband specifically about this chapter. I can't do it justice. Like, no one can, unless you can talk the way Jenny Slate talks in this book. You can't do it justice. And I've never talked the way Jenny Slate talks, but all in all, this is just amazing. And so it has lots of things where she died. It has lots of things where she talks about her dog. She talks like this, in this fashion, the whole time. It's incredible. It starts with her birth and all the things she's made of and all the things she is, and it is incredible. I'm 100% here for it. I want everyone in the universe to read it, and hopefully you love it as much as I do. So please read Little Weirds, see the quirkiness and the uniqueness that is everything that Jennifer Slate made this book, and I hope that you love it. So I left that one for my last one because I want you guys to go read this. And let me know what you think, because I want to know. So those are the 10 books that I read in August, and what did you guys read in August? Are you reading anything now that you like? Please let me know. Let me know if you've read any of these books, and if you agree or disagree with what I'm saying about them. I'd really like to hear it. Please, if you like my channel, subscribe. We have other videos that you can also listen to. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and talking to me about books I read in August. Namaste.